Welcome back to Know How Right Now. Now I promised that I was going to do some completing the square, and so I decided to choose a really basic one, and then one that kind of gets your mind thinking, with a little more arithmetic and like another step basically. And it's kind of important that you do these kind of problems because sometimes you'll get a professor that will try to shake you up on a test because he'll throw something that's not necessarily hard, but there's a lot of arithmetic involved and it's tedious. And so I want to prepare you for that. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, this first one is pretty basic. Okay, so first of all, we start off with this polynomial to the degree 2, this equation, and what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that there's nothing right here in this term besides 1. 1's good. 1's good. So if we have another term, we basically divide. So we would divide by 1. We don't have to divide by 1, but I'm just showing you the steps. So x squared divided by 1 is just x squared. Negative 2x divided by 1 is just negative 2x. And negative 15 divided by 1 is just negative 15. And the same thing, whatever you do on this side, you have to do on that side. So 0 divided by 1 is 0. Okay, so now we're ready to go. The first step is make sure there's not a constant other than 1 here. So I'm going to write that down really quick. Step 1, divide by lead constant. Let's see, what's step 2 here? Alright, now step 2, put a parentheses here, x squared minus 2x. These first two terms you're going to leave inside parentheses, and then you're going to take this third one and you're going to write it out here. So if it's a negative 15, then you're just going to write a negative 15. If it was positive 15, then it would be positive 15. Okay. Now, we want to take this b term, this term right here. We want to take this term and your b term here, and we're going to write negative 2 in parentheses, divide that by 2, and square it. So what do you get? 1 parentheses, negative 2 divided by 2 is just negative 1 squared, which is equal to 1. Now I want you to remember this one here. What's right here before we square it, because we're going to use that a little later. But so what we're going to do is we're going to x squared minus 2x plus 1. So whatever I got after I squared it, I'm going to put right here, plus 1. And notice this is never going to be a negative term, so you're never going to subtract right here, because whatever you square inside the parentheses is always going to come out to a positive. Okay, so now, whatever I add in here, I'm going to have to subtract out here. And let me write this. We'll keep this right here. This is equal to 0. And so now I want to rewrite this as x to the first term, or to the first power. And I'm going to take this right here, whatever's inside the parentheses. Remember, it was negative 2 divided by 2 squared. That's what it was initially. So we're going to take this right here, which is really just negative 1, and we're going to put it right here, x minus 1 squared. And then negative 15 minus 1 is negative 16 is equal to 0. Now what do I want to do? I want to go ahead and I want to move this term over here, because what I'm going to do is take the square root of both sides. So what do? I add a 16 to this side, I add a 16 to that side, and then I've got x minus 1 squared is equal to 16. Now what do? I'm going to take the square root of both sides. This is a plus or minus. Now, if I take the square root of this, well, this cancels this, right? So now I have just x minus 1 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 16. The square root of 16 is 4. Now, x is equal to, I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So I have a positive 1 over here, plus or minus 4. So x is either equal to 1 plus 4 or x is equal to 1 minus 4. So x is equal to 5 and x is equal to, so that's 1 plus 4, and x is equal to 1 minus 4. What's 1 minus 4? X is equal to negative 3. So there are our 2 points. Now I'm going to do one that's a little more tricky. Let's see. Let me see how much time I have. Okay, so I spent about 5 minutes on that one there. Let's do one a little more tricky. Just so you can see how sloppy completing the square can get and why the quadratic formula is a beautiful thing. And by the way, I didn't even write these steps here. The next step would be rewrite in parentheses. That was the next step that we did. And then move all terms to opposite side of x, which just means solving for x, right? When we're doing that, we actually have to square both sides. Take the square root of both sides, excuse me, and then basically we'll write that square both sides. Okay. So if you're new to this, write these steps down. I'm going to erase them, so pause it. I'm going to erase them, and we're going to work on the next problem. Kind of got lost in that problem there. Okay. Let's go ahead and start with another one. This one's going to be a little bit more difficult. Let me get another marker, and I'll try to hit this off a little faster. Here. We have 2/3 x squared minus 7 over 2x minus 15 is equal to 0. Now this is why it's a little sloppier. You can use completing the square, but the quadratic formula is much nicer. Even that can get sloppy sometimes, but let's get started. The first step, we're going to go ahead and divide by the lead term, which is 2/3. So 2/3 divided by 2/3 is equal to, well, this is what it's saying, right? 2/3 divided by 2/3, which is really like saying, I'm going to take this and I'm going to multiply like so. So that's the way I think of it. I'm going to multiply this times that, and I'm going to multiply that times this. And so what does that equal? Well, 3 times 2 is equal to 6, and 3 times 2 is equal to 6. So it's just equal to 1. But I could have seen that already. 2/3 divided by 2/3 is, well, anything divided by itself is 1. So let's write x squared minus 7 over 2 divided by 2/3, negative 7 over 2 divided by 2/3. So I'm going to multiply like this. So what I'm doing is I'm multiplying by that, multiplying times that. So 3 times 7 is negative 21. 2 times 2 is equal to 4. And so I've got negative, 21 over 4. I already wrote the negative sign there. And then I've got 2/3 divided by negative 15. So, well, negative 15 divided by 2/3, excuse me. I'm going to rewrite this a little different. Negative 15 divided by 1 divided by 2/3, just so you can see what I'm doing. 2/3 divided by, negative 15 over 1 divided by 2/3 is the same thing as multiplying like so. 3 times negative 15 is equal to negative 45. And 2 times 1 is equal to 2. Okay, so negative 45 over 2. And then, of course, 2/3. 0 divided by 2/3 is just going to equal 0. Okay, so let's do the next step. The first step, we divided by the lead term. And now we're going to rewrite the parentheses. So x squared minus 20, and this is x actually. This is x. 21 over 4x. And then I'm going to write this, since it's a negative term, I'm going to write it right here, just as it was. and I'm leaving a little space right there. 21 over 4x plus what? When we take our b term, which is this entire thing right here, with the negative sign. So don't include the x, but include the negative sign, because this is like saying negative 1 times 21 over 4, so that's the entire term. Okay, so I'm going to take that, and I'm going to say negative 21 over 4 divided by 2 squared. Well, it's the same thing as saying negative 21 over 4 divided by 2 over 1. So I'm going to multiply these two, and what do I have? Well, I have 1 times negative 21, which is negative 21, 2 times 4, which is 8. And then if I square both sides, let's see, 21, negative 21 squared is 441 over 8 squared, which is 64. And so that's what I have here. So I'm going to add whatever I got after I squared this entire thing, or my final answer here. And I'm going to add it right here inside the parentheses. And I'm going to subtract it right here. I'm going to subtract it right here. 441 divided by 64. Okay, so now, and I'm going to leave this here, as a matter of fact, let's just leave that part of it, because I'm going to use that, and this is equal to 0. Okay? It's important whenever you're writing equations, your professors will most likely be stiflers for this. You have to keep on writing your equal 0, because if not, it doesn't make sense. Okay, so, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to rewrite this to the first power, x, in parentheses. I'm going to write whatever I got here before I squared it, right here, 21 over 8 squared, minus 45 over 2 minus 441 over 64, and what do I got to do here? I got to find the common denominator, don't I? Okay, so let's find that. In order to get this to 64, I have to multiply the top and the bottom by 32. So 45 times 32, and I got 0, 1, 8, 9, 0, 15, 5, 1, 12, 13. 0, 4, 1, 4, 1. So I got 1440. 1440. So let's rewrite this. X minus 21 over 8 squared minus 1440 minus 441 divided by 64. Or actually, let's just write it like this. We can write it like that, but let's write it like this. Is equal to 0. Now what do I have to do? Let's see, I gotta add these, right? 1440, because these have the same denominator. They're both minus, so I'm basically adding these two in, because minus and a minus will actually add to each other. So we have 441, which isn't extremely hard, right? That's 1881. And so you can see how this is pretty tedious with some of these more, a little more complicated ones. Now what do I gotta do? Alright, here's my x term. I gotta get everything over here, everything that I can before I square it, before I take the square root anyways. And so that's x minus 21 over 8 squared is equal to 1881 over 64. And then I've got to square both sides. Take the square of both sides, square root of both sides. Excuse me, I keep on getting that mixed up for some reason. Let me make sure you can see this. Let me check the time as well.